Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. We are excited to have Martin Karlovich from NETRONIC here today. He will be presenting on Supercharge Business Central with a robust capacity scheduler, VAPS. I know you're all eager to get started with this presentation, so before we begin, as a reminder, we are recording this webinar and we will be posting it on our on-demand webinar library for you to review and share with anyone. If you have any questions during our presentation, please feel free to type them into the questions box, and we will answer them at the end of our session during our Q&A. Now I'm going to turn it over to Martin to kick off our presentation.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Joe, and thanks for having us today in one of your great webinars. So my name is Martin, and I'm CEO and co-owner of NETRONIC Software from Germany. I know that in these webinars you are all on mute, but feel free to reach out at any time, either with the GoToWebinar chat pane or with sending me an email, connecting on LinkedIn. So I'm really too happy to engage with you guys on everything related to Business Central and visual scheduling. And so we at NETRONIC, we kind of are very focused on helping SMB organizations to gain operational agility with visual scheduling, because we found out that operational agility actually has become, let's say, a fundamental enabler for companies to operate and grow in unpredictable environments. So when you're operationally agile, when you're able to react to unplanned incidents, when you can like adopt on the fly, then you just get more robust, more responsive, and more flexible. And all of these are attributes, I think, that help people become stronger, and by being stronger, being more reliable in their operations, and achieving thus a better growth. And one proven instrument to achieve operational agility is actually visual scheduling, because with a visual schedule like this, you get transparency faster, so you get a better understanding what is happening in your shop and your production plant faster, and this allows you to make faster, better decisions, and this ultimately turns in better use of your resources and in happier clients. So as a company, we are actually like pretty old. The company is more than 45 years old. We are from Germany, and we are all employees are based in Germany. But although we are like a small German company, we are pretty international actually. So we do way more than half of our business from international clients. And in addition to this, we not only serve a global market, but we also have like a global team. So we although being small, our employees, our people come from right now from 7 countries, and 7 countries means like all continents. So we have somebody from the Americas working with us, somebody from Asia, from Africa, and of course we represent a couple of European countries. The business is independent, privately owned, so it's run by my brother and me, plus a long-term strategic investor, and we serve 3 business lines that all have to do with visual scheduling, and like the business is just differentiated by the customers we are dealing with. And today we talk about the VAPS, so an extension for advanced production scheduling for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. So this is as of now our biggest and also our fastest growing product line, and this is building visual scheduling extensions for Business Central, but also providing visual scheduling add-ins for Dynamics NAV, which is the system that kind of was the predecessor to what we will see today as Business Central. And when we talk about scheduling, and when I do customer demos and when I'm in customer workshops, then I oftentimes hear phrases like the following, like, how does your scheduling software support me in replanning operations that are running on the shop floor, for example, when a machine breaks? So this is one of the typical questions I get, and at some point of time, I looked at this, and then although being German and being a non-native speaker, I try to kind of get my head right away in terms of the phrases that they are used. And I figured out that there are actually, in these one questions, there are phrases used that, well, to some degree, they all have to do with planning and operations, but on the other hand, they also relate to different points of time. So we have the word scheduling, and I had to learn, because like I had to learn English, but I had to learn that scheduling is something different than planning, and both of them, they like differ from a phrase like that is running, because they targeted, or they look at the future scheduling and planning, whereas something that is running, which is under execution, this is now. And I thought that while doing this little word play, it is actually, when we talk about scheduling and planning and execution, differentiation not only in language, but also differentiation in selecting tools is really, really crucial, because what we see here is we see a drill, right? We see a drill that a dentist might use. We see a drill that you can buy from Home Depot and do some fancy stuff in your house. And we see a drill that is used for, well, soil drilling purposes, so heavy machining stuff. And now let's just assume we all talk about drilling, and you're sitting at the dentist and waiting for them to start their work, and then this guy shows up. Well, I would assume that you are scared. And likewise, let's assume you're on the soil and you expect some soil drilling, and then a guy shows up with this tool. And then every time we talk about drilling, but the tool can be quite different, although it always does the same depending on the purpose. And the same is true when we deal with software to help with like execution, with scheduling, and with planning. So I think a good mechanism to kind of look at all these tools that you can apply for executing, for scheduling, for planning, is that you make your mind around planning horizons. And the very basic way of looking at different horizons in your business is, and I sketched this with this double line being the now line. And of course, you can look back. This is reporting. And then you have the stuff that is going on right now, which is execution. And then you have the stuff that is meant to happen after you executed what you're executing right now. And this is scheduling and planning. And so for reporting, this is looking at history. There are a lot of awesome tools on the market that you can use for BI and costing. When it comes to execution, then also Business Central out of the box provides you with really cool tools like work order lists. There is some basic shop floor support. You have time and attendance systems. And then when it comes to scheduling and planning, I actually recommend that conceptually you break this down also in at least a couple of phases. So there should be one phase, and this is from the day after today to maybe 14 days, 15 days, 3 weeks, 4 weeks out, maybe 6 weeks out. So this varies, the period varies based on your processes and requirements, but this is the phase where you actually need to schedule. And what I mean with schedule is, I mean the sequencing of production orders and finite capacity scheduling, making sure that you make the decision what to produce, when to produce is, on which machine produces, in which sequence of order to produce, looking at bottlenecks, and there like visual scheduling can help. Then after that, I would say operational planning or scheduling phase, then there is the master planning, where you try to balance out the midterm supply and demand. And there, like the tool of choice is MRP, material requirements planning, and Business Central has some awesome out-of-the-box functionality with the planning worksheet and MRP and MPS. And then afterwards, there's some long-term planning and some asset budgeting, where you kind of where you do longer-term demand forecasting, and at some point of time where you also do investment planning, like where you make the decisions to add capacity to your floor, like invest in a new machine or invest in new work cells or or change the overall layout of your shop. And all of this is like scheduling, looking ahead. But when we talk about visual scheduling, we actually look at basically at this point of time. So these different horizons, they require different tools. And as said, for execution and to manage what is going on, you have really great tools within Business Central. So there's a machine-centered task list, and there are also some MES apps out there and shop floor apps that you can use. For the master planning, you have the planning worksheet. And again, this is a super powerful tool that comes out of the box with Business Central. But in Business Central, there is actually, in my point of view and in my experience, a gap between managing execution and doing the master planning, and this is scheduling. And here, like the suggested add-on that we talk about, or the suggested capability that is missing, is visual scheduling. And the tool that we provide here and that we will talk about today is a product called VAPS, Visual Advanced Production Scheduler. And the Visual Advanced Production Scheduler tightly integrates with the execution part of Business Central. So whenever you do stuff in the Visual Advanced Production Scheduler, when you change your schedule, when you change the sequence, then it automatically updates like machine-centered tasks. It automatically updates work order instructions. It automatically updates all the information that your foreman and your shop floor operators get. And in the other direction, whenever you work on a job, whenever you post output or consumption on the job, whenever you have progress on the shop floor, then this information gets taken into account by the Visual Advanced Production Scheduler. It gets visualized and it helps you to keep your schedule current. Likewise, the VAPS also integrates with the planning worksheet. So the VAPS actually sends information or provides information that are used for master planning, and the VAPS reacts to information that are the result of the master planning. So with the VAPS, we are actually conceptually closing the gap between managing execution and the master planning, and we are filling this gap when it comes to finite capacity scheduling, production order sequencing, bottlenecks planning, and all of this stuff. So actually, the VAPS is an extension to Microsoft Business Central, Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central, and it is the first finite capacity scheduling extension that fully integrates into Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. So with the VAPS, your data never leaves your Business Central system. So if you run Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central on Microsoft Cloud, then I would say this is currently one of the most securest environments that you can have to protect your data. And with the VAPS, your data stays within this environment. If you run Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central on-prem or have a partner like Innovia having it hosted for you, then of course the data stays in this environment. So with the VAPS, we really integrate into your ERP system. We don't take data out of this system and send it to an external scheduling server and then have some results coming back, but it is all completely integrated, and it comes with finite capacity scheduling. So it helps you really with this short-term scheduling where you don't want to overload your machines, but where you want to see, based on your capacity, based on your current workload, what you're able to achieve until when. So when you work with an ERP system, and an ERP system is like designed to manage transaction. However, when it comes to scheduling, you actually want to manage actions, and some of these requirements that come with scheduling are requirements that are typically not fulfilled by out-of-the-box ERP systems, and likewise, we built the VAPS to kind of help you mastering these challenges where a standard ERP system by default has some shortcomings because originally it was not designed to deal with these things. And this is like the question, there is a bunch of new sales orders. So now I have new sales orders, and some of the stuff that I sold to my customers is something that I have to produce. So what are realistic delivery time frame? And especially if you're a make to order environment, or if you like combined, if you have some sub-assemblies that you produce to stock and then have like the final delivery, a custom-made assembly that you do in these kind of environments where you produce to a customer order, delivery times are crucial. Giving realistic expectations and then meeting them is what will make you succeed in your business. And the question, like, hey, I have now a bunch of new sales orders. I need to create production orders for the sales orders. What are realistic delivery time frames? What can I tell my customer? This is not that easy to get answered from out of the box Business Center, although there is a capable to promise function, but this capital to promise function does not properly take into account like the current capacity schedule. It takes into account timing, but not that good capacity. Another thing is, like, you have a good schedule, you have a solid schedule for the next couple of weeks, and then a machine breaks and you need to reschedule everything. So then you ask yourself, okay, what impact does this have on the jobs that were scheduled on these machines or on the other jobs that I had to reshuffle around, and which of these jobs are still finishing in time, and for which of these jobs I actually got a delay that I have to inform my customer about. So this is also a situation which is quite common, where it is really hard to get information out of Business Central. And the other one is the typical one, that there is a rush job that comes the boss order, and you need to squeeze it in, and your boss tells you, okay, we need to squeeze it in, we get it through as fast as it can. But then the question is like, okay, what is the impact on the overall schedule when I squeeze this in? And I will not run through all of these challenges, but all of these challenges, like, and all of these questions can be addressed, and the challenges can be mastered with the VAPS. But I will just look at one use case, and this is the maybe this is a combination of the first and the third case or question that I had. So let's call it the urgent new job case. And the starting scenario is you plan by machine center. So if your business center is set up, you work with work centers, with machine centers, and every machine center that you have has a finite capacity of 1, which means every machine can work on one production order at a given time. And your schedule is pretty full for the next 3 weeks. And then a key customer calls and they require a couple of items as soon as possible. They tell you, okay, I need these as soon as you can. And the first question that you need to answer when you get an inquiry like this is like, what is the realistic delivery time frame? And then typically it takes you a while before you come to an answer to this, or maybe you have to ask the people on the shop what is going to currently plan, and you need to check with them what they can squeeze in and what they assume when this will be ready. And then when you have this answer and you tell the customer, okay, hey, this is a realistic delivery time frame for these couple of items, then the typical thing to happen is that the customer say, hey, this is all cool, but you know, there is this one item, and this one item of this delivery, this is something I need actually earlier. So what would be the earliest date for that one item? So when can you deliver this at earliest? And then typically you need to ask your people on the shop floor again. You have to build a schedule, you need them calculation, and then you can give the customer an earliest date for this. But then typically the next thing to happen after you gave an answer to this question is that either your boss or your colleague will ask you, hey, by the way, if we squeeze this in, which other jobs turn late due to this action? And this is something that I have seen customers who took whom it took hours to get answers to this question and act on this one sales inquiry, like I just described it, and get answers to all these questions. And the VAPS, actually, we can get answers to these questions very, very fast. So I demoed this use case in an extreme event in 5 minutes. So now I will actually do the demo and we look at this use case. But I take a little bit more time for the demo, because I will actually want to I want to start with showing you some fundamentals of the VAPS first before we go to the use case. So I'm logging into my my BC environment now, and let's start from the beginning. So this is Business Central as you know it, and if you have the VAPS extension installed, then and you are in the if you have it installed, and by default if you have the Business Manager Role Center applied, then it shows up here. If not, then you can ask Innovia to put it on to put the link to the VAPS on your favorite role center. So in this case, like we here, I have it installed in a way that it shows up here on my really on my highest level menu. And when I click on this, I see that there are 5 options how I can now go with the VAPS. And these 4 options here, they are meant to set up the VAPS and to define some master data that we recommend you have for advanced scheduling. This is something I won't look into now, but this is something that we and Innovia would run through with you if you decide to implement the VAPS. So the area that I will work with today mainly is the simulations area, and the simulations area actually is your working area of the VAPS. So first of all, what is the simulations area about? And this has something to do with a key architectural concept that comes with the VAPS is, and I talked about those time horizons. I talked about the time horizon of execution, of scheduling, and of planning. And one of the things that we do by all means want to avoid is that with scheduling you create confusion for execution. I think this is the worst thing to happen, that if your shop is running, if your folks on the shop floor are executing what you scheduled, and then you schedule and start to confuse them. And so we built the VAPS in a way that initially it stays away from execution, in a way that you have a schedule that you published and that your people work on, and that your people and machines can execute. And while this execution is running, you actually can build a new schedule, or you can change the schedule. But as long as you do this, as long as you schedule, as long as you make like impact analysis, what would happen if I squeeze this job in here, actually, as long as this happened, we would not update any work order list, any work instruction, any machine center list. All of this would not happen. And so in order to achieve this, we actually have this concept of simulations that we say, whenever we create a new production schedule, we want to create a simulation first. And a simulation then is something that is decoupled from everything that is in execution. So basically, a simulation is based on a simulation table, which means when I create the simulation, I can define some filters. I say, okay, my minimum status of production was that I want to include is firm planned, so I leave the planned one out. I will look at a time frame where I'm looking a week back and 3 months out. And when I say, okay, we actually look for all production orders that meet this criteria, and now we copied them into a separate table that we keep within Business Central, so that you make your scheduling. So you can create the simulation, which I did, then you can view at it by clicking here or clicking here. You may need to update it. So if now the simulation is done with my 35 production orders, and if my colleague Paulina creates a new production order in the meantime, I may want to fetch this production order and make it part of the simulation so I can schedule it again. This is done by update simulation. And when I'm happy with it, I can publish the simulation. Or I can actually say I want to create another simulation and do something different. So in the one case, I can say, okay, I want to have this production order scheduled here. In the second case, I want to have it scheduled here. And then I can compare those simulations by some KPIs that we give you. So the idea is you create a simulation, you build your schedule, maybe you create another simulation, build another schedule, compare them. And then when you're happy, you publish the simulation. And then when you publish, we write back the data from this simulation into the production order, and then the machine center list, the work order list, and so on and so forth, they update. So now that I created simulation, let's actually look at it. So I'm doing it by clicking here. And then I see my current production schedule. And I see it in a visual way so that like on one glance, I understand what is happening on my shop floor. So very high level, there are three visual areas. I have the time scale here on the top. I have my work center groups, my work center and my machine centers here on the left. So I have like the work center group machining, and then under machining, I have like the work center drilling, and under drilling, I have two drilling machines. In the time scale, you see this now renders by month, week, and day. But if I want to drill down into a day, like if I want to drill down into 29th of January, I can just position my mouse here and zoom into a time frame that kind of matches my current scheduling needs. So I actually go to a time scale resolution like this, because this kind of mirrors the average length of my operations. And then here in the graphical part, I have production orders. In my case, the released production orders are in orange, and the firm plan production orders, they are in blue. And I can click on them, and then I see how these production orders run through my shop. And then if you look at the screen, there are some background colors. So this let's say this one bubble here is one operation. So it starts here on Monday, the 1st of February in the evening, and it finishes here at the end of the day. And then in the background, you see some gray and white areas. This gray area is non-work time, white area is the work time, and this is information that we get from your shop calendar. So I have set up my little sample company in a way that all my machining part is 2 shifts, Monday to Friday. So I start at 8 a.m. until 11 p.m., whereas my more manual work in finishing is only 1 shift from 8 to 4. Then we see this yellow area, and this yellow area is also conceptually very important. This is the standby resource. So this is a resource we add to every work center, and this standby resource collects and shows all those production orders that have been added to Business Central, so that are new to the ERP system, and that I, as the scheduler of this company, did not schedule yet. So to some degree, you can read those production orders on the standby resource as your to-do list if you're the scheduler. So in turn, this means every production order that you see here on the drilling machines, on my milling turning machines, on my saw, on my welding machines, all these production orders have been scheduled by me before, and I published them. So now let's look at this production order actually, and let's look at it in a little bit more detail that is here on the standby resource. So it is on the standby resource because it was added to Business Central, but is not yet scheduled by me. And the way of how you can add production orders to Business Central so that they show up here is threefold. You can create a production order manually, you can create a production order from a sales order, or you can create a production order via MRP. And independent how you create a production order, if this is new to Business Central and not yet scheduled by the VAPS, we recognize this and we put it here to the standby resource so that you as the scheduler can take action. And let's look a little bit at this production order in more detail. So I double click on it and the production order card opens. So it's pretty straightforward production order that I kept simple for demo purposes. It is for item 5004. And if we look at it, there's only one production order line. So it's very, very straightforward in this case so that we can kind of follow the presentation and see what is going on. And if we drill down into the routing, then also this is pretty straightforward. It is a 4-step routing. I have to saw it, and I have to drill it, then I can assemble, and then it goes to quality control. So really, really straightforward. And I defined some setup times for my machining parts, and then some run times, so the time it takes per unit. If you take a closer look at the routing though, and if you're familiar with Business Central, then you might figure out that this column is non-standard. So this column is actually something that comes with the VAPS installation. So the VAPS installation will enhance your routing. And here you have the capability to define alternative routing sets. So I only have one saw, so it makes no sense to have alternatives here. But with Business Central, you always only can assign, or let's say use one machine that you add to the routing. So here in this case, I said, okay, by default, when it's scheduled, this should go to my drilling machine number 1. However, with the enhancement that we did via the VAPS now also knows that drilling 2 is an allowed machine. So basically what I can do with the VAPS is on the routing level, I can define per routing steps the allowed machine centers. So now in this case, I said, okay, both drilling machines are allowed. And what I can also do with setting up the VAPS, I can also define coefficients on the setup time and on the runtime. Here in this case, both my drilling machines are equal. So both are allowed machines, and it takes them the same time to set up, and it takes them the same time to produce one piece. However, with this type of setup where you can define allowed alternatives and where you can define coefficients on the setup time or factors on the setup time and the runtime, you can actually also mirror the case that in one work cell you have 2 machines, this super modern, super fast machine that you always want to kind of be busy, and that by default should take all production orders that go through this work cell. And then you have next to this very super old machine, this very super modern machine, you have this old machine that still does the job, but is much slower. So then you can set it up in a way that, okay, by default, it should go on my modern machine. But if you want to deal with some excess capacity or with some excess production, then you can also allocate them to the slow machine. And when you do this, then maybe actually setup might be more efficient because the machine is less sophisticated, but then runtime would take whatever, double or 3 times the time, whatever factor you define. So this is something that you can set up with the VAPS and that we take into account when scheduling. And then there's another little thing that we did. We actually said, okay, if we look at this production order in the VAPS, I want to see it in red, and you could type in the color here like I did, or you can select a production order specific color via this color picker. Now let me go back to this production order, and let's wonder why this is blue. Well, when I started the VAPS, I decided for a color scheme that says, show me the production order by their production order status, which means orange, the released ones, and firm plant, the blue ones. However, in the VAPS, we actually have a couple of color schemes that you can use for different purposes. And they basically work like a color lens in photography. So if you put the blue color lens on your camera, then everything is blue. And if you put your your black and white filter on your Instagram photo, then everything looks in black and white. And like these filters or these color blends, these color schemes work here in the VAPS. So if I apply the production order view color scheme, we see every production order by its individual color. And now it's getting a little bit like colored. In some degree, it looks like a very colorful, ugly carpet. And I made this for demo purposes, but like a good use case for applying this production order specific color is if you are a combined make to order, make to stock manufacturer, then I would always recommend to take one color for your stock order and then some bespoke colors for your customer orders, so that, for example, if black is your default color for your stock orders, when you need some time flexibility in your schedule, look at the black production orders and move them out, because typically stock orders are less time sensitive than customer orders. So now this guy shows up in red, and now the target is to get this to the schedule. And I will first show you a little bit how we can schedule before I go to my use case, okay? So now I actually will explain you and show you the VAPS in a different sequence of order than I would use the scheduling tool. So with the VAPS, you have a lot of scheduling tools that help you get a production order to the schedule. So the first one is drag and drop. So I can take it here and move it between the purple and the orange. And if I do so, because we schedule with finite capacity, it pushes out the orange one. And you see, because the orange one got changed, so it gets this little gray bubble here at the end. Nothing else happened because there was some idle time on my saw. However, on my drilling machine, it is quite complex, right? Because the drilling machine is busy this week and basically busy this week. So I can take it and move it in. And now, by the way, if I move it down, I have a look. The drilling machine 1 and 2 are highlighted. All the others are grayed out. And this is because drilling 1 and drilling 2 are the allowed machines, and all the others are not allowed because they were not part of this alternate routing. So if I move it here, the whole queue of operations on this machine is pushed out. And if you see, also stuff moved here, because like this guy now moved because its predecessor on that machine got moved, because all the other operations got moved here. So this one change that I made to my drilling machine here had some real downstream impact. So you see every production or every operation that now has a gray dot got changed by me squeezing this in. And if I scroll down really downstream, I will also recognize that there are two production orders that actually have a red dot, so they turned late. So these production orders, they turned late because I squeezed in this here. So actually, drag and drop is something that I recommend you to do if you want to handle exceptions. So I undo this now so that this get back and my schedule gets a little bit better sorted out. But using drag and drop is really a tool for handling exception and not the norm. What should be the norm is more automatic scheduling, that you say, okay, actually, I want to add this guy to the schedule, and I want to add this guy to the schedule by applying the standard routing without changing everything. So let's look at the standard machines that are defined in the standard routing when they are available, and then it gives me a realistic delivery time based on my current capacity utilization. So now I did this and it found a gap here on the sawing machine, but then the default machine is drilling 1 and we have to wait quite a long time. And then again, when we are done with drilling, my default assembly line is also busy. And then once I'm done in assembly, my default quality control guy is also busy. So as a matter of fact, you see the due date line becomes red because we are slightly late. So now remember, and let me undo this again, remember, for every routing step, with exception of the first one, I had defined alternatives. So I can also tell the system, hey, please find me like the earliest available finish time for this production order by looking within all allowed alternatives machine when this can be done first. So if I do this, and I can actually say apply alternative routing, and then we look within all allowed alternatives. Of course, it finds the free slot in sawing. Then there is a free slot actually available on the drilling machine that we could use, and then we could send it right away into assembly, right away into quality control. And so now, without changing any production order, we are finishing it 2.5 weeks earlier because we're just making better use of available capacity and of the fact that we know which machines are allowed. And these are some basic functionalities of the VAPS. And now what I want to do is I want to actually leave the VAPS for a quick moment of time. And what I want to do is I want to create the sales order now with a couple of items. So let me go to my sales orders, and this is the use case that I had, that the customer asking, and it is like always the Canon group is asking. I think this is the Canon group, yeah, and they are asking for, they want to have it on the 3rd of March. They want to have a couple of items, so maybe they want to get this item and they want to get it in a quantity of 30. And I'm really now randomly picking a couple of items. They want to have this item 25. I don't know, is this existing? This is a rubbish one. They want to have 60. And maybe let's do just 4 items. Good, 25. So now I created the sales order, and we see already that for some of the items we added to the sales order, we have no inventory. So now I'm going to create a production order from that sales order. So now I'm saying, okay, for these items, I haven't enough available, so I need to create the production order. I do it as a firm plan production order, but I create it as a project order so that I just have one production order. We could also create it as an item order that has no impact on the VAPS. So now a new production order has been added. And now let's quickly go back to my simulation. And you already see from here, they are now flagged as outdated. Let me nevertheless open it again. So outdated mean, and remember what I told you, with the simulations, we take the existing production orders that meet the criteria of the filter that you defined when creating the simulation. And we copy them into the table. So now I added a new production order that is not part of this simulation. So this simulation now is outdated because I added new data to Business Central. The rest of my schedule should be as it was when I left it off. So what I can do now is I can actually say update simulation. So then we are fetching new production orders, and you will see some of the stuff appearing here. Now, because I added a couple of new production orders, and now you see there is just more on the standby resource, and I think that this is the production order I just added. Let me do a double click. No, that's with 5 items. These are actually, this is the one. I think this is the one I added. Nevertheless, so then what I want, no, it's not, because it already has a color. So this is when you do this stuff live. So let me take this one. Yeah, this is the one that I just added. And now what I want to do is that we want to focus on that production order. And so I make it black, close to black. Anyway, so it's black when it shows in the VAPS. So now I change the color scheme so that we can focus on that production order. There we go. Then now this production order that I just created from the sales order and that I added to the VAPS and that is now on standby, this is now shown in black. And you saw me earlier on like dealing with this red production order here and say, okay, right click, apply a standard routing or apply alternative routing. And so now I have this new production order. I need to get it to the schedule quickly to answer my customer the question for the realistic delivery time frame. So now I can also say, I want to schedule them all and I want to look for the allowed alternative machines. So when I do so, we can also specify how many iterations we run, and the more iterations we run, the better the result is. We did a lot of heavy testing there, and we found out that like 3, maximum 4 iterations do the job. And now I did this, and now you see every operation that was there, every production order moved from standby to the schedule. And now the cool thing is, if I want to talk to my customer and want to give them realistic delivery timeframes for all those items, I can click on one of these black things here, on these black operations with it's a new production order, and then I can say, show this thing in the sales order view. So now we change the view on the schedule, and these are my sales orders that come with the production order. And this one now is open because I come from here and I said to my customer who issued me the sales order 10/20, I can say, okay, I actually currently I scheduled your item 25, the item 5,000 with 25 units. We will start working on it on the 5th of February, and this should be finished by the 22nd of February. Item 5001 is scheduled to finish here on the 3rd of March, and actually this gives us a little bit hard time, and we will look at this. This might be a little bit late. Item 5003 also a little bit late. So and this here also a little bit. You see that I got like a little bit, or I'm like hitting the required date, the 3rd of March. I'm just hitting this very sharp. So the customer said, okay, Martin, you know, this is no issue for those two items, but with this item, the item 5004, I really need this as early as I can. And then when I look at the structure of this job, I see, okay, I start on sawing quite early, and then it takes a while until it goes to drilling. So then I can go back to the capacity view and say, okay, actually, let me try to see how my schedule looks like if I rush this through my shop as fast as I can. And in order to rush something through the shop as fast as I can from here say scheduled successors, and then we bring forward every successor without no further gap. So now I'm bringing all those successors forward. Hopefully it did the job. Yeah, now you see I can tell the customer, actually, if you want to have it as fast as possible, then I can deliver it by the 12th of February, so way earlier. However, and now I'm coming to the third question that I raised in my on my slides, is you see a lot of production orders actually now run late. So now, if I'm the scheduler and if I'm not the CEO of the company, I would go to my boss and say, look, this customer, and I know it's important customer, they are asking for like a real rush on that item. They want to start us next week and ship the week after. They want us to ship until the 12th of February, and we can do this. We can rush it through the shop. But if we do this, it goes on the cost of all those production orders, and somebody has to inform these customers, or somebody has to make the decision if we want to have it or not. And this is something like you saw. I spent a lot of time explaining the VAPS and some ideas of the VAPS. And then I think I started creating the sales order 10 minutes ago. So from the creation of the sales order to giving answers about realistic delivery time frame, giving answers about the answer about like the earliest finish date for one item and the impact on what this has on the schedule, it took me less than 10 hours. And nevertheless, if I'm now happy with this schedule, if my boss would say, okay, Martin, yeah, this is actually cool, I agree with this, and all these orders are for whatever, less important customers, or these are stock orders or whatever, then I could leave the simulation and could say publish, and then all my production orders would be published. And with this, let me quickly go back to the demo and share with you some final thoughts and recommendation on how to best work with the VAPS and some things to take into account when you do your first step with respect to visual scheduling and or production scheduling. So the very first closing recommendation is, and I made the point with the drills, in my point of view, it is really crucial to differentiate execution, scheduling, and planning. And really, Business Central provides really cool tools to plan with the planning worksheet and MRP. There's a little bit of gap when it comes to execution, although there are the machine center list and some work order task list. So the recommendation is that especially when it comes to scheduling, close this gap with a product like the VAPS, and you can do some manual posting and some manual execution and work with the work order list, or you can look at some shop floor and MES apps that the Innovia expert will definitely recommend to you, because I know that they are very familiar with them. Then the second closing recommendation: independent if you work with our tool, or if you work with a tool that is more sophisticated, or if you work with a tool that is less sophisticated. For example, if you keep working on with Excel, none of the tools that you will purchase, and independent how expensive they are, they will do no magic for you. Every tool, every software that you work, and this is a painful, I think this is a really painful thought, but it is reality. Every tool that you use require constant work from you. So, and there are, I always talk about scheduling routines. I really recommend that you establish routines for scheduling. So there will be a point of time that you plan, you do the master planning, then you schedule, you execute. Something happens in execution, machine breaks, a production order runs longer than expected, or you decide to stop producing it and shift the remaining quantity to a later date, which means you need to schedule again. Then what you have scheduled, you execute it. You get new insights from the shop for you, schedule again, you execute. Okay, a couple of time is gone. You need to kind of plan again to see that the midterm demand and supply is in balance again, and then you start to schedule again. So this is constant work, and a tool like ours just makes this work easier. It makes it more visual, and it makes it more transparent, so you actually understand what is happening on this path, but there is some work required. And then the last step is, when it comes to scheduling, I also recommend that you walk before you run, so that you gain some scheduling fitness, maybe with an easy visual scheduler. And then if you have some experience with scheduling from an easy visual scheduler, and we have like a lightweight solution to the VAPS, where you just have drag and drop scheduling, that you make this experience, and then once you made this experience and can exactly articulate what you expect from a scheduler, then do the next step and go to a more advanced system. And with this, I want to pass it back to Joe. I thank you very much for your attention, and I'm opening up for question, and thought it would be worthwhile to share my contact details again. So I leave this open now, and I'm open to take some questions. So Joe, back to you.
Thank you very much, Martin. It appears we don't have any questions today. Please feel free to contact us or Martin and his team at NETRONIC with any additional questions you may have. I want to thank Martin for presenting today, and everyone on today's webinar, or if you're watching on demand, we want to thank you for taking time to join us. Just a reminder, we have new training workshops for you and your team members to attend. Visit our training workshops page at innovia.com/workshops for more information and to register for the training workshops that fits your role. We also have more webinars coming up. Next Tuesday afternoon, take some time out and join us and meet our support squad. The team will be sharing a little bit about themselves, their love for what they do best, and answer your pressing questions. Check out our website for more of our upcoming events, and that's at innovia.com/events. And don't forget to check out our Innovia Conversation podcast with hosts Steve Woltz and Jeff Pergolski. You can find out about all the different podcast platforms to listen to them on our podcast page. That's innovia.com/podcasts. And while you're there, check out our podcast library and be sure to subscribe to receive notifications when new episodes air. And fall is approaching, and that means conference time. Check out our conference page at innovia.com/conferences to learn more about all the conferences we will be attending this fall. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at another Innovia webinar. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you.